Silverstone gave us more than just a typical race day. It left fans scratching their heads, especially because of one man, Oscar Piastri. The Australian driver found himself in the middle of chaos, not just on the track, but over the radio too. And the questions he asked his team? Well, they sparked even more noise in the Formula One world. Let's rewind for a second. The race began in true British fashion and predictable skies, and a mix of tire choices. Intermediates to start, then a sudden downpour, and eventually, dry weather tires returned as the surface cleared up. From the very beginning, every second kept fans guessing, but everything truly turned sideways around lap 18. At that point, chaos had already started. Hajar was out of the race after slamming into Antonelli's rear end, completely blinded by the water spray. Meanwhile, Piastri had grabbed the lead early on and looked set to hold on to it. But during the safety car restart, he made a move that confused everyone watching him, especially those driving behind him. As the safety car lights switched off, Oscar did what drivers are supposed to get ready to go. But instead of a smooth launch, he hit the accelerator only to suddenly slam on the brakes in an odd and jittery fashion. Verstappen, trailing him closely, nearly lost control due to the unpredictable move. And when Oscar finally committed to speeding up again, Verstappen lost grip and spun out. Now, let's be clear, Oscar didn't directly cause Max's spin, but his unexpected maneuver did shake the Dutch driver's rhythm. Naturally, officials took notice. After a swift review, they handed a 10-second penalty to Piastri for dangerous driving behind the safety car. Given the situation, it could have been worse. A stop and go would have done much more damage. The penalty meant only one thing: Piastri would lose his shot at first place. With Lando Norris trailing just a few seconds behind at the time, that 10-second hit almost guaranteed Oscar would slip back into second. Still, what happened next was even more surprising than the penalty itself. After switching to slicks during the final pit stop and serving his time, Oscar got back on track. But then came the radio message that raised eyebrows. Speaking to his race engineer, Piastri said something many considered bold. He questioned the fairness of the penalty and suggested that if the team also felt it wasn't right, they should let him and Lando swap positions and fight it out again. Now, let's unpack what he was asking. Piastri had just been penalized for his own braking action interference from Norris, and no error from McLaren's side. The data showed he braked hard after accelerating, which isn't exactly standard practice. The officials didn't act on a hunch. They based their decision on clear telemetry. He dropped from 218 km per hour to 52 km per hour in a matter of seconds, using 60 psi of brake pressure. That's not something you see often on a straight stretch between turn 14 and turn 15. So, when Oscar proposed that they rebalance the race on the assumption that the penalty was too harsh, it was always going to be a tough sell. Lando had built a lead of over 5 seconds with just a handful of laps remaining. And to make matters even more complicated, this wasn't just any race. This was Silverstone Norris's home turf, racing for a British team, in front of a packed crowd cheering him on. Imagine trying to explain that the driver, leading at home, should pull over, not because of a mechanical issue or strategy call, but because his teammate wasn't happy with a penalty he earned himself. It just doesn't line up with how teams operate, especially when the margin on track is clear. Oscar's request put McLaren in an awkward spot. The logic behind it didn't hold much weight, especially considering how clear the FIA's decision was. After the race, Piastri stood by his stance. He insisted that he had followed the same pattern behind the safety car for several laps, and didn't believe he did anything unusual. But the telemetry didn't support that claim. The data clearly showed a sharp drop in speed, far more aggressive than in previous laps, and the consequences didn't end with a 10-second penalty. Oscar also received 2 penalty points on his super license, making the situation even worse. These points stick, and too many of them can eventually lead to a race ban, something every driver wants to avoid at all costs. With the dust settled and the checkered flag down, it became clear that Oscar may have let frustration take over. In trying to make a point, he might have harmed his own standing both within the team and among the fans. McLaren is known for allowing its drivers to race freely, but there's always a line that shouldn't be crossed. And questioning team dynamics at such a crucial moment, in front of a home crowd for your teammate, didn't exactly win him any favors. It's also worth mentioning that we've seen moments like this before, but never from Oscar. In fact, if roles were reversed, most would expect Norris to be the one making such a plea. Yet here we were, watching the usually calm and composed Aussie throw a curveball that no one saw coming. This entire scenario raises another important question. Is Oscar beginning to feel the pressure of being in a title-contending car with a teammate who's now outperforming him? Norris has found consistency and rhythm. He's now won back-to-back races, and that confidence is starting to show. Meanwhile, Oscar has struggled to respond the same way. And maybe, just maybe, it's beginning to get to him, as the gap in the championship narrows to just 8 points. Every move counts now. Oscar Piastri might still be leading, but the momentum is shifting and fast. Lando Norris, after a rough outing in Montreal, has bounced back with back-to-back victories. putting him right on Oscar's heels. The contrast in their recent form is becoming hard to ignore. Piastri's comments after the race revealed more than just frustration. He said, "I'm not going to say much. I'll get myself in trouble. Apparently you're not allowed to brake behind the safety car anymore. I did it before for 5 laps. Heck with it. I'm not going to say too much." This kind of remark shows that Oscar isn't just annoyed. He feels genuinely wronged. But the reality is, the rulebook is specific and doesn't leave room for personal interpretation. The regulation that caught him out was Article 55.15 of the FIA Sporting Regulations. It clearly states that once the safety car lights are off, the driver must maintain a steady pace without any sudden or dangerous braking. Oscar's action going from high speed to near crawling pace in a matter of seconds was exactly the type of maneuver the rule is meant to prevent. The stewards didn't act emotionally. They acted according to procedure. That brings us to what lies ahead. With both drivers neck and neck, and Red Bull showing signs of weakness, the spotlight is now entirely on McLaren's garage. Verstappen and the RB21 haven't looked nearly as threatening in recent races. And Ferrari's sudden improvement at Silverstone only complicates things further. The fight for P3 is heating up, but it's the inter-team rivalry at McLaren that's stealing the show. For now, it seems there's no clear no. One driver at McLaren, and that could be both a blessing and a curse. The team has allowed them to race freely so far, including in Silverstone, but as the season tightens, can that freedom continue? Or will the team have to make a tough call if things get out of hand? With everything that happened at Silverstone, McLaren now stands at a delicate point in the season. Both their drivers are in prime form. Both are capable of winning races. And both are now in direct competition for the title. But what happens when internal rivalry starts to affect team harmony? That's exactly what McLaren needs to manage. Carefully moving forward, Lando Norris has grown significantly as a driver. Last season, he was often labeled as someone who folded under pressure, especially during key title battles. But this year, there's been a noticeable shift. He's more composed, more focused, and importantly, he's turning those moments of pressure into results. The mistakes we saw in previous seasons haven't resurfaced since Montreal, and now with 2 wins in a row, he's making a solid statement. On the other hand, Oscar Piastri came into the season with plenty of hype, deservedly so. His performances last year and early this season were solid, sometimes even overshadowing his more experienced teammate. But lately, something's changed. Whether it's the added pressure of leading the championship or Norris's resurgence, Oscar seems to be more reactive, more emotional, and more prone to frustration. His radio messages, body language, and post-race interviews all point to someone who's not handling the current situation as well as he did earlier in the season. Let's also not forget the technical side of things. The MCL39 is clearly one of the strongest cars on the grid right now. It performs consistently in both dry and mixed conditions. While Red Bull struggles to adapt to certain tracks, and Ferrari still faces reliability concerns, McLaren has found a setup that works. That's why this title fight is now centered around their own garage. And with that comes the real challenge, managing 2 drivers who both believe they can win it all. McLaren has done well so far in letting their drivers race without interference. But as the points tighten, will that approach continue to work? Or will we start to see more tension, maybe even team orders, when a championship is on the line? As the championship continues to unfold, the battle between Piastri and Norris has become the centerpiece of this season. It's not just about raw speed anymore, it's about mindset, timing, and who handles the pressure better. Silverstone may have been a turning point, not just in the points table, but also in their relationship as teammates. McLaren now faces the most delicate test a team can go through. Balancing 2 title contenders under the same roof. One missed, poorly timed strategy call, or one internal conflict could cost them both championships. And that's where management will play just as crucial a role as the car's performance. Oscar Piastri's reaction to the penalty at Silverstone, although emotional, shows a young driver who's hungry and deeply invested in winning. But that same fire needs to be channeled properly. Right now, the numbers are close, but the momentum is with Norris. And unless Oscar regains control over the mental side of the game, that gap could grow fast. The next few races, Spa, Hungary, and Monza, be absolutely critical. These are tracks where racecraft, weather, and strategy often play a bigger role than outright speed. In such unpredictable conditions, the one who keeps calm and makes fewer mistakes will walk away with the bigger reward. And that's what it will boil down to. Consistency. S fans. We're witnessing something rare, 2 incredibly talented drivers in equal machinery, fighting not just their rivals but also each other. This is the kind of story that defines season's end, sometimes even careers. There's no villain here, no obvious favorite. Just 2 racers giving everything they have. In the end, McLaren's decision to allow them to race freely may become one of the boldest and most respected choices of the modern era. But if things boil over, we might look back at Silverstone not just as a controversial race, but as the spark that lit a fire under one of the fiercest teammate rivalries in years. The championship is far from settled, and if what we've seen so far is any indicator, this season is only going to get more intense from here.